Hi crafters, Echo here with a video tutorial for Unity Stamp Company. Today we're going to be doing some Northern Lights sky. I'm taping down my watercolor paper to my craft mat. I did a wet on wet technique, so I'm just adding some water to my paper before I drop in the color. I will list all the colors I used below. I'm just going back and forth, dropping in colors, just creating, just simply enjoying playing with the colors and the water. I cleaned my brush in between the colors so I don't end up with a big muddy mess from mixing too many different colors, but I wanted to do a bunch of different colors to get a super vibrant Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis type sky is what I was going for. And I ended up with quite a bit of water on my card panel. So what I ended up doing was taking another watercolor cut card panel and pressing it on top. So I got two backgrounds. I got a two for one. And that was fine too. I was like, okay, we'll just keep going. With watercolor, the best thing to do to get that vibrant color is layers. Just layers, let it dry, and layers is the best way. And I am by no means a professional watercolor. I just enjoy watercoloring for the sake of watercoloring. Now what I'm doing is taking a paper towel and dabbing where it pools, and it leaves a really cool texture because it's pulling off some of that paint on the paper, and I really love it. And then the water kind of just follows that, where some of it's a little bit wet and some of it's a little bit dry, and it just kind of just makes itself. I'm just dropping in color and just playing along. I took the other card panel and I did that several times, and then drying it a little bit. Just keep working those layers, just to get a really vibrant color, so that that sky will really stand out. I will be stamping some silhouette trees below, was my idea. And the second card, we're just winging it because I don't know what I'm going to be doing quite yet with that panel, but we'll figure it out as we go. Once I get my final layer, where I feel like it's, pretty good and saturated with the color I want. And watercolor is always gonna dry lighter. So even though it looks super vivid now, it's still gonna be lighter once it dries. That's just the nature of watercolor. Now I'm gonna let it dry completely before I do any stamping. All right, the card panels are dry. We're gonna put them in the Misty. I'm gonna line up my trees, and I have a piece of acetate that I stamped on first to make sure that it's lined up and not crooked. And because the nature of the watercolor paper that I use, it's super textured, and so I have to stamp it a few times to get into all of the texture of the paper. So just keep that in mind when you're stamping on watercolor paper. You do have to kind of stamp it quite a few times. Now the stamp that I used does not go all the way across, so here I am just lining it up. I used a piece of acetate, made sure it was lined up to my liking before I stamped it. And it's pretty easy to do. You don't really have to fuss with it too much. It's just some trees. Trees are all in front and behind each other. And I did a die cut, and now I'm diluting some white acrylic paint. Gonna do some splatters. I covered up the trees so I didn't get too many, because I didn't want it to make it look like it's snowing. I wanted it to look like stars. So, and for the second panel, I die cut with a star background die, and added splatters as well, white paint splatters. So as those are drying, I did a little bit of cleanup and got my card panels ready. It usually doesn't take too long for the paint to dry. Once the paint was dry, I took a black marker of anything that I had got a few little paint splatters on the trees, and I just took a black marker and blacked it out so it looked like the trees were in front. And then I colored the bottom because I wanted it to look like a full silhouette, and I didn't really like the way that looked too well, so then I ended up using some distress ink, which is it worked out really good. And then I just glued it down to the matting and the card base, and I stamped the sentiment and embossed with white embossing. Glued down the sentiment and some gems just to give it a little sparkle, and she's done. And we'll put together the second card, the bonus card we got. I'm just gluing it down to the black mat because I want the stars to be black. And because I die cut it cut off on the side. It cut off some of the stars, so I added a strip of just some silver glittery paper that I had. I thought, oh, okay, that'll work. The card just made itself. And so I die cut the hello out of the same silver sparkle. Did the shadow in black. And that was a pretty easy second card that I hadn't planned on. Thanks for watching.